Well, I asked, where's the beef? Let's call this for what this is. Oh my God! They are so hopelessly woke. How dare you? That is the intellectual capital of the left today. Give me a break. You are now watching the Daily Roundup. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Daily Roundup on this, a Monday, May 1st, 2023. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a little bit about my co-host. Folks, do you know that today is National Mother Goose Day? And my friend was going to recite a Mother Goose poem, but she just couldn't come up with a PG-rated rhyming couplet to the phrase, hickory dickory dock. Oh, she is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Alberta. She is Sheila Gunn Reid. How you doing there, she-devil?
I'm doing great. Thank you for stopping your limerick at the most appropriate place so that none of us get fired. It's also International Doodle Dog Day, so like a poodle mix, Labradoodles.
Oh, I've got a golden doodle. Does that count?
Yeah, it's a big day for your dog today.
Yeah,
what are you going to get your dog?
His name is Sir Gregor. He's named after that giant zombie knight from Game of Thrones. And he is the most lovable and the most stupid dog on the planet.
Yeah, that's mine too. That's mine too. My cat is named Margaret Scratcher. And when the vet calls to say oh, it's time for time for the cat to come for shots or whatever, deworming, whatever, I insist that they call the cat by the full name, Margaret Scratcher, even though we call her Maggie around the house.
That's brilliant. I gotta tell you, Sheila, I'm really picking up an Irene Cara Flashdance circa 1983 look on you today. I mean, you're not going to do some cartwheels or anything like that and sing What a Feeling, are you?
Anything that resembles aerobics, I'm not going to do. Thank you very much. The neckline on this shirt is a little wide. I realize that, but I like the shirt.
No, you look great. And hey, good news for hockey fans in our territories. The Edmonton Oilers have advanced, and the Toronto Maple Leafs won their first playoff round since 2004.
Wow.
Harper was still prime minister. I know the last time they won the Stanley Cup, Lester Pearson was prime minister. And Sheila Gunn Reid, I'm going to give myself a Barry Horowitz pat on the back, because prior to Game 6, I called it 100% correct. They said, who's going to win tonight? And I said, the team wearing blue and white. And look what happened. Thank you very much, Sheila Gunn Reid.
Good job, David. You're like an oracle. People should be paying you money for your predictions. It's also a win for, I don't know, I guess taxpayers, but I'm not sure. We'll see what the deal is. PSAC's supposed to go back to work. Did anybody actually even notice that they weren't working, tangibly speaking?
Sheila, much like doing your taxes, the devil is in the details.
Exactly.
Because as PSAC has a tentative deal, about 125,000 strong, there's still 30,000 plus CRA employees that for some reason aren't
complaints for me.
Yeah. So on this,
no complaints for me that they're not working.
Oh, but you know what, Sheila? There are a lot of people. I think there's
I guess there's a lot of people waiting on their refunds.
So if you phone today, tax deadline day, May 1st, because April 30th was a Sunday, good luck. No one's picking up the phone. And this is egregious, because there are people, honest, hardworking Canadians that want to pay their taxes and want to do it correctly. And because these SOBs are striking at the tax deadline, they're going to be fined if it comes in late. They're going to pay interest and a penalty. Well, what are they supposed to do if they're legitimately asking for a question? Accountants are saying this too, Sheila. This is completely unfair.
Yeah, and I mean, these bunch of hypocrites, right? Like, they're the same ones who denounced the Freedom Convoy. They said, oh, it's time for the mob to go home. That's literally what they said in their statement. It's time for the mob to go home. And people should be allowed to protest without getting pepper sprayed is literally what they said in their thing. Like, hours later, I think our journalist was pepper sprayed, and PSAC didn't say a single word about it. But yeah, they're mad because of honking and inconvenience.
Oh, yeah.
These people are literally saying hold the line, which landed Tamara Leach in jail for incitement to commit mischief, or whatever the criminal code infraction was. They're blocking the airports. They're blocking Pearson, although if you've traveled through Pearson, I'm not sure how you would notice. It's just chaos down there anyway. They blocked the Montreal airport. I think they blocked the Rainbow Bridge. All the things that they accused everybody else of doing, they're doing now. And Freedom Convoy didn't block any airports whatsoever.
Yeah.
Time to Emergencies Act these people. But if you as I said in my video the other day, if you seize the bank account of a union boss and or a union, what happens to the NDP without the donations?
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And but Sheila, when it comes to blackface, no, he won't enact the Emergencies Act basically on a constituency that tends to vote for him, the federal bureaucracy, which keeps growing year after year for some reason. And I just want to add one little thing to this whole CRA thing. And I thought, oh my God, be careful what you wish for. There was a statement released, and it was in response to the question, what about Canadians that need advice? They need help on this tax deadline. And there were words to the effect of, well, there's no excuse. Canadians, you can't speak to a live CRA representative. You can go through our automated process. And I'm thinking, with AI emerging, maybe we don't need any human beings at the CRA anymore. If the automated process can answer all your questions, Sheila, here's a nice line item for the government to get off the books, the 30,000 plus CRA people, because they're saying you don't need humans when it comes to the tax man. Okay, let's double down on that.
Yeah, careful what you wish for, because you just might get it, jerks. They're also not taking checks anymore. I saw that I think it was in Blacklocks this morning. CRA is saying if you have, a tax payment that you need to make, it all has to be like internet banking. They're not taking a check from you anymore. So I don't know.
Because of COVID, maybe they don't want the COVID cooties on a piece of paper. And by the way, Sheila, I'm sort of mixed emotions slamming the CRA, because I'd rather be in trouble with the mafia than, the tax man. And I'll tell you a quick anecdote before you get to all our housekeeping rules. There was a man and his friend was a CRA employee, and they're out for a walk at lunchtime. This was in Hamilton, Ontario. This was in the 1980s. And the way the story went, a Porsche went by and had a vanity license plate that said words to the effect of paid for. And this CRA employee, well, back then they were called Revenue Canada, was so taken with the chutzpah, the bravado, and he was saying, oh, that's just so in your face, driving this German sports car and saying it's paid for. And Sheila, for the next 5 years, that poor SOB that owned the Porsche 911, he faced,
I believe it,
5 years of audits for no reason at all. Then somebody had his sensibilities offended by somebody that, hey, made out well, bought a sports car, came up with a witty license plate number. Oh, there'll be none of that, not when it comes to Revenue Canada or CRA. And by the way, why did they change their name? Why is it a monopoly government bureaucracy has to go through a rebranding like Pepsi Cola every 10 years, Sheila? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, because there's so much stigma attached to them. They just you have to repackage it up with a shiny new outside, but it's the same horrible inside all the time, isn't it? Let's get to all the fine details of the day, and then let's get into the news, because it's a big, very busy day. The writ was dropped here in Alberta, so the NDP will be especially wild coming up and out of control. It's going to be why just madness in Alberta for the next little bit. So this is the Rebel News Daily Roundup. It's hosted almost exclusively by David Menzies and then somebody else. Today it's me, where we talk about the news of the day, obviously, as you can tell, completely unscripted. And it's a great way for you to interact with us and us to interact with you, because we're streaming on multiple platforms, including the censorship platform of YouTube, because there are 1.6 million sets of eyeballs over there, and we definitely don't want to abandon you. But if you are over there and you care about free speech, might I suggest you watch us over on Rumble or on Odyssey, where on those platforms, also on Locals, by the way, locals.com. If you are on those platforms, you can support the work that we do completely willingly. On Rumble and Odyssey, you can leave a paid chat. On Rumble, it's called a Rumble Rant. On Odyssey, it's called a Hyper Chat. But we're also on Twitter and Getter as well. And Twitter seems to be a pretty free speechy platform these days, and likewise with Getter too. So there are lots of ways to watch us where you are not subject to the censorship of YouTube. And even on YouTube, sometimes we have to cut the stream on YouTube because we might be talking about things that they don't like injuries related to an experimental medicine that the world was forced to receive against their will. So if you are watching us on YouTube, be prepared. We might have to pull the chute. So maybe move over to one of those platforms. And I think that's it.
All right, then. Well, speaking of censorship, Sheila, maybe we should go right away to Pablo Rodriguez on Bill C-11, because I know the first item was PSAC, but I think we talked about that.
That's fine.
And by the way, what an unfortunate acronym, eh, Sheila? PSAC. It sounds like a bag you put urine in. Anyway, let's get back to Pablo Rodriguez and see what he has to say about this wonderful piece of legislation that is basically, well, it's going to shut down your opinions in the near future, folks, barring a legal challenge, which is coming, of course. Check it out.
Yep.
You did have an opportunity through an amendment that the Senate passed to be very specific that this bill would not target content creation at all, and you did not choose to adopt that amendment.
No,
but sorry, let me just finish. I want to pose to you then, can you understand why those content creators would then say, hey, he had the chance to be explicit, he didn't take it?
I understand that there's been a lot of disinformation and a lot of efforts from the Conservatives to make people believe that, and they did also stall this bill for 14 months. You know, Vashi, that this bill is the bill that spent the most time in the Senate in the history of the country. So it's been very well analyzed in the House, in the Senate, and for us it's very clear, and if necessary I'll make it clear in my own directive to the CRTC, but it's not about users and it's not about what people post online. It's zero.
I appreciate that there was a lot of politics in this and a lot of political posturing. I know you're saying from the opposition. I think that's true. I think it's also true from the government side. I think it spent a lot of time in the Senate to a degree because there was a ton of consternation and scrutiny going on there as well, right? People were concerned about the possible impacts of this bill. So I'll pose to you again, because your answer didn't really address the substance of my question. You had the chance to be more explicit, to ascribe in the intent of the writing of the bill a very clear intent not to tackle content creation, and you didn't take it.
Well, no, that amendment from the senators wasn't doing that. It was creating a loophole. For example, it would say that if you take a song, a commercial song, that would be captured on Spotify, and you put a background, then that song is not captured on YouTube. At the end of the day, it's the same song that you're listening to. So you have to be fair. If something is commercial and it's on social media and it's exactly the same thing that is on, for example, Spotify, then it has to be captured in the same way, but not the content. I'm not interested in the content. We're only interested in knowing how much of that commercial is there, so you can then base what the platform will pay in terms of revenues based on that. That's it.
Yeah, there's the spin cycle, Sheila. I'm just going to say something.
I don't think he's read it. I don't think he's read the legislation.
What's that?
I don't think he's read the legislation at all.
No, he's certainly not answering the question from Vashi. But I just want to say this, Sheila. Folks, by all means, if you are a premium content subscriber, please check out Ezra Levant's monologue on his show on Friday. That was part 1. Part 2 is tonight. It's on Bill C-11. The boss man dissects it like a scientist and shows you really what a monster this is, despite that gloss over by Pablo there. So please, That in itself, Ezra's monologue on Bill C-11, is worth the price of a premium subscription. Sheila, I stand with everything Ezra said. What are your thoughts, my friend?
I don't think he's read the legislation. And if you look at what he's saying there, but also what he said in other interviews, he said that we're basically supposed to trust the Liberals on this. That is because they were purposefully unclear in the legislation, that we're just supposed to trust them, that it's not going to touch user-generated content. What did he say? What did he call it? We need to take their assurances that it's not going to touch user-generated content, although they rejected any attempts to make it clear. And so why would you reject any attempts to make it clear, except it is your plan to eventually, if maybe not now, regulate user-generated content? And he can talk about how long this thing spent in the Senate, but at the end of the day, it remains largely unchanged. There's almost no changes done to C-11, no matter how long it languished in Senate. And now the regulation part starts. So it's passed, and now it's like Obamacare, where they're like, pass the law and then you get to see what's in the law. That's what's happened here. Same thing happened with Bill 6 here in Alberta. Pass the law, and then we'll build all the regulations in, and that's what's going to happen here. So even now, whatever this is, it's going to be Frankensteined into something much worse because it's going to get the regulations built into it now. So I sincerely believe he has not read the law at all. And nobody could help him with his tie before he went on air. That was odd.
But you know what, Sheila? I want to pick up on your other point, and I think it's brilliant. I think you're absolutely on point. This bill, this law, is not so scary for what it says. It's about what it doesn't say. What is open to interpretation. And again, the devil is in the details. And, don't believe this crap that this is all about, Canadian artists getting their piece of the action. I think that was the original idea for the CRTC in the late 60s, early 70s to promote Canadian content. And I don't think Canadian musical artists need that help anymore.
No.
Good music is good music. Good content is good content. It's called the free market economy, right? And whether or not Bryan Adams is based in British Columbia or California, it doesn't matter. He makes good music and he's got a world market for it. End of story. So this is the Trojan horse, I think, Sheila. This is the way they're selling it, because I see imbeciles online saying, what do you have against the government helping Canadian content providers? That's not what this is about. It's about censorship.
Well, of course it is. For example, Canadian country music artists, you know where they go to make a name for themselves? And they do it very well? They go to Nashville. They don't stay here.
Yeah.
No matter how much you try to shoehorn them onto the airwaves here, they go to Nashville to make a name for themselves. I think the number one country song in its category right now is Evangelina. It was just released by Colter Wall, Brad Wall's son. It didn't need the help of the CRTC and all these extra boosts from the federal government for people to appreciate his music. It's just unnecessary. In fact, it's the bigotry of low expectations to think that Canadian content creators need the help of the government to succeed. We certainly didn't. But there's always, sort of this, we're just here, we're from the government, we're here to help,
Yep.
That's what's happening here. And it's like Andrew Wilkow always says, when the government is reaching out one hand to help you, the other hand is a fist. And that's what's happening here.
And, because there is an internet, I'll give you one example, a Canadian example. Justin Bieber, he became a sensation because of people tuning into his music on YouTube. And then came the record contract. Once upon a time, there was no such thing as the internet. And maybe Justin Bieber never realizes a recording contract at all. So why does that have to be regulated? It doesn't make sense. And by the way, I think this should be a segue, Sheila, because I fell in love with a musical artist last night. I came across Parody Whitney, and she has a song. I think it's going to go viral. It's on YouTube. It is a parody song of the Bud Light fiasco. And
Let's hear it.
it is unbelievable. It's about 3.5 minutes. Every second is gold. Please, folks, share this.
Hang on. Before we move on, let's make sure the web team links her YouTube in the description of this, of the show today, so that people can go directly to her also.
Oh, okay. I don't think it is here.
It will be.
It will
Let's
be.
just make sure the web team puts it there so that
No, I
people,
don't
if they
understand
want to
these
check
things.
out her content, they can do that. I know you don't. You know, I'm using words that you don't even understand. It's like I'm speaking a different language to you.
So, folks, here is Parody Whitney. I don't care where in the world she's situated. I'm pretty sure she's an American. Singing about the Bud Light marketing fiasco, which is not going away. Take it away, Parody Whitney.
Oh no, but lie. Back in April 2023, things got bad, as bad as they could be. I remember but lie. Uh-oh, but lie. Like a train wreck in a movie scene. But this is not a drill or make-believe. Major meltdown over life. Can't find a way out of the corner that you put yourself in. Stand by. Looks like you spent that bonus much too soon. Oh no, but light. Carefully dropping words like freedom now. But the only sails are ones that put it out. Dire straits for open light. The CEO broke down calling for his mother. Passing that old buck around, is it any wonder? Oh no, but lie.
New head of marketing for Bud Light.
What is that?
This beer has a complex woke flavor that's hard to identify. It's a bit nutty one day and kind of fruity the next. But trust me, you'll love it.
Right now, there's a party going on at Heineken. And others too, they couldn't buy a stroke of luck like this if they'd want me to. Oh no, but lie. Now you're bringing out the Clydesdale horse to pull your sinking ship back on its course. But it ain't working, oh but lie. We've known your beer tastes just like bum bum for a while. The silver lining is less taste buds are now defiled. Oh no, but lie. Oh no, but lie. Oh no, but lie. Oh no, but lie.
So I
Wow.
hear back from the studio in Toronto, that they've added a link to that video if you'd like to see it in full for yourself in the description box
Fantastic.
underneath wherever you're finding us streaming right now. Let's
Oh,
stay
and
on.
Sheila, I just want to say one thing to Dylan Mulvaney and Busty Lemieux and all you other Herman Munsters wearing mini skirts out there. That's what a real woman looks like. That's what a real woman sounds like. So enough with the pantomime already. And by the way, super producer Olivia reminded me that, and it just shows you the spin when it comes to the left-wing media, Sheila. According to The Hill, quote, most beer drinkers support brands working with transgender spokespeople, according to a poll. Yeah, you know what? Please send that link along to the CEO of Anheuser-Busch, Sheila. Is the stock still down by $6 billion, or has there been a bit of a dead cat bounce in the last few days? What nonsense! I mean, Bud Light is the people at Coors, the people at Heineken, you name it, they are cheering this ad campaign. Oh, yeah. And the stock is down, the sales are down. And you know what's funny? I was in a beer store on Saturday, Sheila, and I went up to, it was one of those walk-in beer stores that we have, and I saw cartons and crates and cases of Bud Light. And I said to the guy, gee, I bet you not a lot of Bud Light is selling here either. And he said, and I right away knew what his politics were, oh no, it's just that fringe that is complaining. That fringe, boy, that fringe commands a lot of clout when the stock goes down $6 billion US.
Just fringe, just fringy. Like imagine the gaslighting there, though. By the way, that if you disagree with men being given women's opportunities, then you're the fringe. Like these people really don't live in reality. Like, look. The script is totally flipped right now, where if you're like, yeah, you know what, you can live your life however you want, but you're not a woman. You're the crazy person now. You're the unscientific person now. You're against medical science now. It's just the bizarre amount of gaslighting going on in all of this. Yeah. We should quickly touch on this tweet from Chrystia Freeland, who is one of the most unlikable women in all of Canada. And so they've decided to bring in one of the most unlikable women in North America, if not on the face of the earth, to speak at the Liberal Party convention. So they're bringing in Hillary Clinton. So between Freeland, who is just extremely unlikable, and Hillary Clinton, if they bring in Kamala Harris, I think we've just got the trifecta of the most unpalatable women in all of politics all in one place.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You know, Sheila, that photograph in conversation, Hillary Clinton and Chrystia Freeland, you know what it reminds me of from, I think it was 2004, the movie Aliens versus Predator. And the tagline was, no matter which side wins, we lose. That's all I can think of.
Send me to Gitmo before you send me to that convention to listen to those two people talk. You know, if I get hit by a bus crossing the street and I'm dead and I haven't gone to confession first, the priest doesn't come to administer last rites, and I end up in a special circle of hell created just for me, that's it. That's it. Where I have to listen to that cackling Freeland and also equally cackling Hillary Clinton just cackle at each other forever and ever. That's what'll happen to me.
You know, it reminds me, Sheila, super producer Efren and I, we went down to cover, it was an event at the then Air Canada Centre where the Leafs play. And it was Hillary and Bill Clinton giving a fireside chat. And for the first time ever in my entire life in Toronto, dealing with a scalper, reverse scalping economics took effect, which is to say, I went to buy tickets off a scalper and they weren't marked up by 400%, which is the de rigueur price for a Leaf playoff ticket. No, I got a 90% discount. Nobody was buying it.
Just paying you to take them.
I know. God, so you know what? For once, I felt hope in my heart for Toronto that this was not a SRO, sold right out, standing room only event. In fact, they had to bring in curtains to camouflage all the empty seats, and they would upgrade everyone's seats to a better seat because people weren't buying what they were selling. And I went in there, and my God, what was sad, Sheila, was we know what Bill Clinton is all about, at least when it comes to his personal life. And the idea that these two pretended that they were like newlyweds and that this was a glorious marriage.
Gross.
You know, and people in the audience, you know, the ones that had drank the Kool-Aid going, you know, when they talked about the story when they first met at a university library. And I'm thinking, holy mackerel. By the way, I wore my Make America Great Again hat. Oh, did I get dirty looks in that building that day. But
she is, you know, and I get sick of listening to the Liberals unable to shut up about what a bunch of feminists they are. And then they bring in old Hillary to talk at their convention. If you've ever heard from Bill's, and I'm just saying this, not because I believe it to be true, but because I don't want to get sued, alleged victims. You know who they were more scared of after allegedly being sexually assaulted by Bill Clinton? They were more scared of Hillary. They were more scared of her. You know what? With Freeland and Clinton talking, like their fireside chat is going to sound like two old ravens fighting over an old deer carcass in the ditch. Just what a nightmare.
Oh, come on, though. Sheila, how dare you doubt that the Liberals aren't feminists? Wasn't it the hobgoblin himself, Omar Al-Gabra, that led a Congo line of Liberals
in
wearing
pink
high-heeled shoes? You know what? And the more I think about it, Sheila, the more offended I become, because it's this. If you think that the biggest concern of women today is walking properly in high-heeled shoes, man, you are out of date by maybe half a century. I mean, how insulting, how patronizing to real women was that, Sheila?
Well, enforcing a bunch of gender stereotypes. Like, I don't even know a woman who has pink high heels. Nude, sure, it makes your legs look longer. But like bright pink high heels, obnoxious. Like, no, it's just, anyways, that's how they address women's issues, these absolute idiots. I think we should hit an ad break because we are halfway into the show, and then we'll move on after that.
The media said that Canadian truckers were Russian agents controlled by Vladimir Putin. Justin Trudeau called them extremists.
The small fringe minority.
We are here out of love for our families, our communities.
And the government put the country under martial law to stop them. But what's the real story?
If you can't see the future in clear outline right now, you're not paying attention. But the truckers in Canada can.
And I want you to know that I'm not afraid.
For the first time, the woman at the heart of the trucker convoy speaks out.
Hold the line.
Tamara Leach, passionate organizer, loving mother and grandmother, proud Métis and proud Albertan, and defiant political prisoner jailed for daring to criticize the government. Tamara Leach. Her new book, Hold the Line, My Story from the Heart of the Freedom Convoy, is the inside scoop of what really happened. You've heard from the media and the convoy's critics. Now hear the truth from the woman who inspired the world and made Justin Trudeau blink. Visit theconvoybook.com to order your copy now.
Oh, can't wait for that book to plop on my desk, Sheila Gunn-Reid. You know, and the Big Boss Man, he had the greatest line last week regarding all the PSAC workers showing up on Wellington Street where the trucker convoy took place. Oh, by the way, no Emergencies Act invoked for that, of course. But what Ezra said, Sheila, was, you know, how do you like that? First time in 3 years, all the federal workers show up in Ottawa to the office, and it's to do a strike in which they're not going to the office.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the key things they were fighting for, in addition to an outrageous salary increase, is to enshrine in the collective bargaining agreement that they get to sit on their fat ricotta cheese candy asses and work from home. And no, sorry, the only reason that was a thing to begin with was COVID. It was never meant to be forever. It was a temporary fix. And now that we know what we know about COVID and that we could have gone into the office, no problem. No, the idea that you're extending this for health and safety reasons, oh, give me a break, she-devil.
Well, and before anybody sends me any letters, and they do, I don't. I know there are good people working in that union. I know, because you reached out to us when your union wouldn't do anything to help you when the vaccine mandates came, and I feel for you, and I'm just so sorry that you have to work in a union that you politically disagree with, and you're forced to support them, and you pay them union dues, and then they give you those union dues to the Liberals or the NDP. This is why I believe in right to work legislation. If people had a choice not to join that union, the union would shrivel up and die. Anyways, so don't send me emails. I know there are good people in there. There are a lot of bad people. Yep. I really dislike the union leadership, though. The worst. That guy's the worst.
I agree with Sheila. You know, I didn't mean to paint you all with one brush, but you know what? It does speak volumes when you see thousands of federal workers out on Wellington Street, and it's to not work. Anyways, more on the...
by the way, sorry, we have one chat related to this.
Okay.
And I'm happy that this came in. So it's from Adam Ottawa, who gives us $5. And he says, I'm sorry to all Canadians for having to watch these spoiled brats strike. I can testify that I did not spend 1 minute on the picket line. As penance, I will make a donation to the Democracy Fund. Well, Adam, see, you're exactly the reason I just made that statement. And my friend's mom, too. I wish there was another way in this country for you. Your union leadership, I don't know what they're thinking. This is not how you get the public on board when the public is living through an inflationary crisis caused by the federal government, that you have a bunch of federal workers asking for extra money. Now, let me preface that. If police forces need extra money, give it to them. Yeah. If the military needs extra money, whatever it takes, guys. But the well-kept bureaucrats who had the cushiest go of it during COVID, hey, you know, I want to care. I want to care. I'm having a tough time.
100%. You know, when the strike first begun, Sheila, there was a call on Toronto Talk Radio, and it was about the last federal workers' strike. I think 1991. I might not be right with the date. I think it was 91. And the caller had two friends in the federal workforce, and they were mandated, like they are now, you have to show up to do your picket line duty. You can't do that from home, unlike your work. And what he said, they would go there around 9:30 a.m., sign in, walk a few, blocks, do their picketing. Around 11 a.m., they would go to the Paramount Theater and take in a double bill. And then by around 4:30ish, they would come back and sign out, as if to make it look like they were on, the sidewalk picketing for hours and hours and hours, when as a matter of fact, they were taking in a double bill movie show at the Paramount. Wow, what a work ethic.
That confirms everything that all the biases I have in my heart about some of them. It just confirms all of it. They can't even be bothered to show up to get paid to not work. Like, come on, you guys.
Yeah, they're getting strike pay to watch a movie. Unbelievable.
Anyways, also, by the way, I just said, if police forces need more money, give it to them. That's a general statement, except for the Toronto Mounted Unit.
Unbelievable.
Not those guys. So the Toronto Mounted Unit, famous for breaking up barbecues and trampling people at illegal barbecue restaurants, now they're using their horses to intimidate pesky teenagers who are against the sexualization of kids inside of municipally funded facilities like libraries. So we have a video of the Toronto Police, the Mounted Unit. I want to like these guys, but I just can't. They're intimidating Nick Alexander from Save Canada, and he was protesting at Toronto Library when they had men in sequined ladies' underpants reading to children, which I'm not sure how that correlates to childhood literacy rates. But anyways, it became a police matter. So let's roll this video.
Unbelievable.
Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Hey, well, no, I'm going to make sure this guy's okay, and I'm going to damn well film it while you trample people. Okay? Yeah, well, you're going to if you keep this shit up. What, man?
You're on the street right now.
Because I was impeded. Thank you.
Please go on to the
Yeah, I will when I'm done with this. I will when I'm done here. Thanks. What are you going to do? Hit me with your horse? Oh, I can't control what people do, but you can control what these fucking crowds are doing. And you don't need a horse to do it. Dude, look, where am I supposed to go? I'm surrounded by fucking horses. Just stop talking to me. Stop it. Stop.
Can I speak? I turned on the other side and I drove these boys.
Fuck me, you fucking lunatics. Get the fuck out of here. Excuse me. Excuse me.
I maybe should have warned people about the language.
Hey, cop!
Am I being detained?
I drove them. Can we please go? I gotta go.
You're on camera. I'm not being
We
detained.
gotta go.
Then let's go.
Let's go.
Move your horses. We are not. No. Sidewalk's
You
closed.
can't block it. You can't arbitrarily.
Okay, Monty, if it's closed, we can't go up there.
Hey, buddy, I
Okay, well, wait here.
on the other side and I drove these guys. Let us through. Let us through. Let us through. My car's on the other side of the
This is
bridge.
fucking insane.
I can't walk the other way. I'm from out of town. I don't know where else to go. I only know. You can't.
Do I think this is good, Olivia? I think that makes the point. What is that kid doing that you need the crowd control horses? Like, look, I understand how horses work. I'm a farmer. And so I get their usefulness in crowd control situations. They can navigate through the crowd very easily. They can be intimidating to city people too. So they have that extra psychological effect. But that's not a crowd control situation there at all. They've got one lone kid there with a flag. He's not acting crazy. He's not doing anything. He's just holding a viewpoint that is counter to, I guess, John Tory. I'm not sure, but what is the point of having the horses there? I have no clue. You know where they could have had those horses though on the very same day? Down at the Pearson Airport dealing with PSAC.
Yep.
You know, if you want to deal with a mob, they're blocking Terminal 1 departures down there. Again, I reiterate, it's hard to tell. Like, it'd be hard to tell if you can tell if there's an airport disruption down at Pearson these days. But you know what? There's an actual crowd down there instead of just some pesky conservative teenagers on the street. Go take the horses down there and go bully PSAC. If you really are feeling frisky and you want something to do, go do that. That was completely unnecessary.
It was grotesque, as you said in the preamble, Sheila. There wasn't an illegal barbecue restaurant to shut down with all the King's horses and all the King's men. Oh, no, John Tory was a no-show, Sheila. I assume he's chasing a female subordinate staffer around the cottage, in his words. That was the email he sent to the wrong person. Better check the the recipient, John, next time you're having an illicit affair. You weirdo creep, you.
He's just the most unpalatable man, too. Like, you want to talk about the male version of Hillary Clinton? It's him, right down to the, like, weird old lady mullet flow thing that he has going on. And just the idea that he was having an affair just is stomach churning.
Oh, my goodness. What in the world was Emily Hillstrom thinking? Don't worry about her,
I guess
folks.
Power is attractive to some ladies.
Yeah,
but
and
we
she
have
got a job at MLSE. I'm sure John Tory's Rogers contacts had nothing to do with that one. Anyway, I'm going to tell you what you couldn't see on camera there, Sheila. It was the counter-protest. These were the rainbow people with their allies, Antifa. And by the way, folks, this is an ongoing trend. You see Antifa now at becoming counter-protesters, and they're not waving their Antifa black, red, and white flag. That's right. They got the trans flag, the rainbow flag, the Pride Progress flag. That's the one with the, they call it the BIPOC vagina inserted into the rainbow flag.
That flag gives me vertigo because I don't know where to look. I'm like, what part am I looking at here? Olivia tells me that we have another angle of that interaction with Nick Alexander.
Get back! You're on the other side of a fence. Get over there. Okay, we are surrounded by horses and one guy's attacking people. Traffic. Dude, we had to go around the fucking war horses, man. Yeah, we do. We have every right to be here. We have as much right and more right than these fucking war horses, my man.
Where are you going? Somewhere that way. I don't even know where. I'm not from Toronto. I know the area. Okay.
We are citizens trying to freely travel. Please. Please. We don't want to go on the other side of the road.
It's a free street, man. It's a free country. We're allowed to walk up the side.
You are all breaking the law, you realize, right? All of you.
They're moving along. Once they're gone.
Well, move them along then. Don't hit us and surround us with damn horses. This is fucking crazy. Hold on. at this fucking craziness. Guys, you're surrounded by horses in downtown Toronto. People are grabbing.
So I think that's good.
Look at this.
Yeah,
Look at
so
this.
this is the other angle. I think that's good. So what we see there is a lunatic in a mask, which is, you know, a little on the nose. But so you see a guy who's suffering from extreme hypochondria and probably oxygen deprivation, grabbing a teenager in front of the cops. And who do the cops surround? The teenager.
Yep.
Because he's got the wrong opinions. And look, don't homemade lawyer the cops on the street. That's how you get arrested, as we saw there. But he's literally not doing anything wrong. He's just walking, and you've got the kid cornered. He's not doing anything wrong. Why don't you deal with the violent mob that just grabbed a kid?
Sheila, I'm going to explain to our viewers exactly what's going on when they say, well, wait a minute, why aren't the cops arresting the person committing the assault? And I'm going to tell you why. I filled in for Ezra Levant last month for a monologue in which we were tipped off by a Toronto copper of a transgender training module all police in Toronto have to sit through. And it goes like this, folks. Transgender people are not worthy of equal rights. They are worthy of special rights. I'll give you an example. If you are put in a holding cell, and because I've been a political prisoner in my own country, I've experienced that a couple of times, you have to surrender your shoelaces, your belt, your necktie, anything that can be weaponized or conversely that you can use to kill yourself. But if there's a trans man, that is to say a woman pretending to be a man, and she has a dildo in her pants, you cannot confiscate that, even though that can be weaponized. Why? Well, that's not a sex toy, folks. That is a gender-affirming article. So basically, and you have to see, I mean, if you go last week, we put up the monologue. It was behind the paywall. You can see the whole thing for free.
It's out now, yeah.
And you are not going to believe it. It's one after another of these people. They look to be homeless, transgendered people lecturing the police on how they have to be treated, how they have to be addressed, what their pronouns are. And this, in fairness to the Toronto Police, this is not their initiative. They were ordered to do this by the Ontario Human Rights Commission based on one complaint. Some jabroni got misgendered, and all of a sudden, policing has to be turned upside down. All of a sudden, the idea of Lady Justice, holding the scales and wearing the blindfold. Well, guess what? When it comes to the trans community, she's wearing X-ray glasses. Please watch that video. You will now understand why the cops have basically lost all their testicular fortitude when it comes to dealing with the trans people and their allies, which are the violent thugs of Antifa, and why they instead turn their focus on law-abiding, peaceful protesters. Sheila, this is disgusting.
Yeah, it is. And this is how normal cops just quietly take early retirement, leave the force. They just go do something else where they don't have to be brainwashed into doing things that they know are actually going to serve to make the community that they love less safe. We should hit an ad break and then go into the topics in the last segment, David, if you don't mind, because we won't have time to do the stuff in the middle, because I want to get to the work that Callum's doing. And then the very nice things that were said about us at the NCI hearings in Red Deer, which I was there for. And then how Alberta continues to lead the way in fighting back against the federal government. So let's hit an ad break and then go to the last segment stuff.
I am doing something today that I have never tried before. Listen up. I'm looking for collaborators in a new and exciting initiative. As you most likely know, YouTube a long time ago demonetized Rebel News, and we are 100% viewer funded. Now, while our supporters are fantastic at helping us cover legal campaigns and special reporting missions, unfortunately, the reality is our day-to-day operational expenses often exceed our income stream. which is crazy if you think about it, because my videos across all platforms attract hundreds of thousands of views and sometimes even millions. So I want to share that reach with the right partners. If you have a product or business and want to enter a win-win relationship with me, please go to rebelnews.com/ads and fill in the form to let me know. I won't be accepting anyone. I need to believe in your business or product so I can sell it proudly for you. And for successful applicants, I will guarantee a minimum view count, meaning even if your ad is published on the less popular reports, we'll keep promoting your business or product until it gets the agreed minimum eyeballs. So again, if you have a cool company or product that either wants to take advantage of my reach or want to support my work through advertising in a way that you can write it off as a tax deduction, or both, head over to rebelnews.com/ads and hopefully we can join forces soon.
Well said,
That's a great
Abby,
ad.
and I understand.
I feel like I want to advertise with us after watching that.
Yeah,
like
if
I
had
feel
the
like I
money,
want to.
I'd be throwing it on the table right now. But I understand from the morning meeting, the rest of us have to do Abby and Minnie style ads too, right, Sheila? So.
Oh yes, but you should have been paying closer attention. So you need to. We've got new merch coming into the store, and we have some special Mother's Day promotion. So friends at home, stay tuned for some fun little ads filmed by your favorite rebels, which may include David Menzies. And there will be a new coupon code for that. So we're just sorting out those details, and then you'll see us promoting the store one more time.
I think I'll channel Blaine Lastman from Bad Boy, Sheila. Who beats Rebel News when it comes to Mother's Day merchandise? Nobody.
Is that a Toronto thing that I have no clue what you're talking about?
Go to the Googler.
Go to the Googler. You know what? Might I suggest, David Menzies, if you want a really fun ad campaign, Nikki Fredinsky. If you're from the Edmonton area and you're of a certain vintage like I am, the best car ads ever were by City Ford. And they had this guy, and he was like a caricature of a Ukrainian farmer, and he was Nikki Fredinsky.
Oh, no.
And he was the best. Like I literally bought my first brand new vehicle from City Ford based on a Nikki Fredinsky ad.
Wow.
And yeah, like it was great. But anyways, you can find them on YouTube, Nikki Fredinsky, City Ford.
Oh, but Sheila, how could that be? A man pretending to be a Ukrainian farmer?
I don't think he was pretending.
No.
I think he was Ukrainian and possibly from a farm, as everybody is from Alberta, but he just sort of ramped it up a little for kitsch.
Well, I'm in shock because going back to what we talked about earlier, according to The Hill, transgender spokespeople, that's what moves the merchandise these days.
I suppose. Selling pickups to farmers down at City Ford. I'm not sure if that's the target audience. Okay, let's move on. We've got a video from our friend Callum Smile. So our UK team is actually in France, in central Paris right now, and they're covering the May Day protests there. So far left agitators and their friends. So anyways, we've got a video from Callum, who's there right now, and as you can see, it is getting frisky down there already. This is mostly peaceful tear gas, I think is probably what we're going to see.
Yeah. So why have you come here to protest today?
Because Macron has removed the age of retirement, and it's unfair because the poor will dead, and it's so unfair. So we are here to protest and to show that we are against this government, which is tyrannic and violent.
And do you think your protests will make him change?
I mean, we hope so, but we see that we are protesting since 4 months, and nothing has changed. Like the things have gotten worse. But we will try and we will see if it works.
And what do you make of the police's use of violence today?
I mean, as living in a neighborhood, I'm kind of used to it. I know that they're violent. I know that they don't respect the laws. But we are fighting against them, and we are trying to resist.
And if you could say one thing to the police today, if they were to watch this video, to try and get them on side, what would it be?
Either join us or go fuck yourselves.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Jeez, I'm so sorry, everybody at home, if you don't like the harsh language. This is 3 videos in a row where I didn't warn you in advance.
And you think you were worried when I said hickory dickory dock, Sheila Gunn.
I know. It was a harbinger of things to come. Can I just say that I quite possibly dislike everybody involved in whatever's going on in France right now. So we've got people protesting in the streets because the retirement age is moving from 62 to 64 because they can't pay for these services. People are living longer. The retirement age was just literally picked based on people's life expectancy a gazillion years ago, and people are living longer than ever. And they're languishing. Actually, in the last 10 years of their life, because people, I've got my own theories about it, but it has a lot to do with the standard Western diet these days. So people, they spend the last years of their life unwell, and that's a burden, but people are living longer than ever. And they're, look at the 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds these days. They're strong. I think 40 and 25, I think people are sort of the same there, in a way that they weren't maybe 50 years ago. And so they've moved the retirement age up, which is, as a Canadian, it's still lower than what it is here in Canada. They're out rioting in the streets. I can simultaneously think those people are wrong, while also thinking that Macron is a tyrant and the police are probably using extra violence there, based on what we saw from the anti-COVID protests there.
Wow. Much like Hillary Clinton and Chrystia Freeland, yet another aliens versus predator scenario.
Yeah.
No matter which side.
Can everybody lose so I can just be happy?
But Sheila, you're absolutely bang on. The reason why, at least in North America, we came up with 65 as a retirement age, going back to more than half a century. well, yeah, because that's right. After 65, the conventional thinking, well, it wasn't that. It was actuary tables from the life insurers. You probably had 3 or 4 good years left, and then you went into decline, especially if you were sedentary, especially if you were smoking cigarettes, etc.
Yeah.
Now you got people in their early 80s climbing Mount
90s,
Everest,
yeah.
right? I've always thought, Sheila, one of the most successful ad campaigns in Canada was London Life Freedom 55. And it always ended with the Muskoka chair on a Caribbean beach, as the sun is setting and it's beautiful. Imagine that, retiring at 55. And imagine you're sitting on this Muskoka chair watching the sunset in the Caribbean. And that's nice for the first day, the first week, first 2 weeks. Sheila, I know at that age, if I was doing that every day, I'd be going out of my mind.
I'd be
at 55. You're really just at the halfway mark of the gas tank right now. People are living up to 100 and beyond. So as much it was an idyllic, wouldn't that be beautiful? Well, think about it. You better come up with some hobbies, making ships in a bottle.
There would be a murder-suicide around here if I had to shut her down with Rusty Junk, my husband upstairs, who is continuing to paint the tractor wheels instead of my door. When you think about Freedom 55, so let's say you've been working 20, 35 years in your career. If you sort of retire at 55, you still have 40 years left on your life. You're going to be more retired than you were working. That seems very boring to me, actually. I don't think people should spend their lives working themselves to death, but I think it is important for people to be productive and contributing and stay busy and keep their bodies busy and their minds busy. And one of the best ways to do that is to go to work every day, because the benefit of that is not just the psychological and physical benefits, but you also get a paycheck too. So it's a win-win-win for the people involved, and the economy too, and the taxpayer. So I don't know.
Sheila,
I hope everybody in France loses and I win.
Wow.
It's fine.
Could you ever imagine our hardworking boss Ezra ever retiring? I don't ever see that,
Oh, I don't. I think for his family, he should never quit working. I think he would drive them all crazy.
And you know what? Sometimes, and I think, heaven on earth is if you have a job that you love. So in other words, you're not crawling out of bed, oh, go to the office. That, to me, is paradise, Sheila, to get paid for something you love to do. And if you're to retire from that, I think that's a detriment. That's a penalty rather than some enhancement to your life.
Well, and that is a wonderful segue into this next video that I want to show. So for people who don't, because this is how I feel about my job. Because unlike other journalists, we get to do something extra special here at Rebel News. Because we don't just get to report on the bonfire of civil liberties that is burning every single day, but sometimes we get to throw a bucket of water on that bonfire, and it might not put the whole thing out, might only put out a little part. But that's what we get to do. So we don't just get to report on the catastrophe, we actually get to be involved in offering a solution, be it through a partnership with the Democracy Fund, or helping people get involved with petitions or activism, or as the left says, raising awareness, which is when we embarrass people by hiring billboard trucks. And sometimes it's just moral support. When you're bringing a story to the world, like was the case with in the early days of what was happening in the whistle stop, it was, you had this one tiny business owner in this one tiny little place in the middle of Nowheresville, Alberta. But the whole world was watching once we started coming there to show everybody that this man is standing up. It's not just for him, it's for you too. And so all that is to say, Chris Scott was at Chris Scott, the owner of the Whistle Stop Cafe from beautiful Mirror, Alberta, population 520-ish, I think, these days. He was one of the early resistors of the lockdown. He opened his business in defiance of the lockdown. Ultimately, it led to his arrest and incarceration for 3 days, a gag order where he had to publicly denounce himself, engage in a struggle session against himself before he could give his honest viewpoint on lockdowns, vaccines, whatever. He had his property seized, which resulted in collective punishment for the entire community because he's the only gas station in town. He's the only convenience store in town, the only campsite in town. There was one other restaurant in town, although it didn't do quite as well as his. And so the whole community was punished by the government because he stood up, but everybody rallied around him, people from all over the world. And I spent, he says a week there, but I probably spent a month there. I think it's all probably a blur to him. But anyways, he tells the story of not us here at Rebel News, but how our involvement in what he was trying to do helped him stand up to the government because we became the vehicle for other people to help him too. So let's roll this. It was, I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit like, what's the right word? Verklempt. I was sitting sort of like off to the side in the the NCI. So that's the National Citizens Inquiry. And this is it's the citizen-led inquiry into Canada's COVID response. And so I was sitting off to the side, sort of like to what would be, as you're looking, like Chris's right, as he mentioned this. And you forget when you're doing these stories, because it's like you go, you do the story, you try to help how you can, and then you sort of package it up and you move on to the next catastrophe. and you don't realize the impact that you're making when you're doing it until you stop and take a chance to look back, but you're still just moving on to the next thing and trying to help the next person in front of you, that you never really take those minutes to look back. And I was forced to take a minute to look back as Chris was talking here. It's about 2 minutes, but anyways, I think all of our journalists should watch this because it fills up your moral tank to keep fighting and keep grinding out there helping people.
You're standing up for yourself, and I admire what you're trying to do, but you've already made your point, and you should just close and follow the rules because you cannot win against the government.
So I just want to make sure that I'm clear. This is the chief of police?
Yeah, chief of police.
And so it would be an RCMP officer.
Right.
And so the officer actually supports ethically what you're doing, but is communicating to you that as a citizen of Alberta, you don't have a chance of standing up against the government to basically have a right to protest.
That's right. And, the ironic thing is he was right. A citizen cannot win against the government. I was put in a position where to fight the government and to stand up for my rights and, after realizing what was happening, the rights of people around me, where the outlook is grim. I mean, you retain a lawyer in this province for something like this, and they want $25,000 from you up front before they even do anything. It costs $10,000 to prepare a piece of paper. And somebody like me, there is no way, I don't have not a snowball's chance in hell that I could stand up and do that on my own. But something amazing happened. A lady by the name of Sheila showed up at the Whistle Stop Cafe, and she's a reporter for Rebel News. And they had a program at the time called Fight the Fines, and they were crowdfunding so that people like me could actually stand up against the government. So with their help, I went from a 100% assured loss to, hey, you know what? We actually have a chance to do something now. Thousands of people, probably millions of people from all over Canada chipped in, and they stood up, and they stood with people like me who were trying to stand up against the government. And all of a sudden, that truth that Sergeant Bruce Holliday had said to me, that you can't win against the government, that truth changed to, you can't win against the government, but we can win against the government. If we stand together and start speaking some truth, and we unify around a truth and move towards doing what's right, we can actually win against the government, because that's the one thing that stands the test of time, is truth. And the truth is that what was done to us was wrong. The bureaucracy that did what they did to us did it in error. For whatever reason, it doesn't matter why they did it, but it was an incorrect path. And we're seeing that now. I mean, we've heard testimony from everybody from Lieutenant Colonel.
Well, Sheila, first of all, your reporting was phenomenal on that. I see you're having a verklempt moment, and
yeah, I'm fine.
And we did reach out. We did help so many people, and I keep going back to the fact that we've spoken about this in the past, that if you think anyone had a bailiwick to put on their Superman tights and fight for these people who are having their rights trampled upon, it would be the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, and yet they were AWOL. No, that's not quite right. They weren't AWOL, folks. They were obsessed. It was almost like a fetish to get prisoners, including violent prisoners, out of jail cells so that we could maintain social distancing etiquette. Isn't that amazing, Sheila? Do you feel that we're really living in the bizarro Superman world, up is down, good is bad, etc.?
Yeah. It was just bizarre, actually. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association, they showed up late to the game. Now they're involved in as much as they possibly can. Oh. But this was their wheelhouse.
Yes.
And they were absent. So out of the ether, the Democracy Fund is created and becomes Canada's largest civil liberties charity that focuses on civil liberties litigation and education. And there's a reason for that, is because, as Chris says, there were people who wanted to help somebody like Chris, but they didn't know how. They didn't know how to help him. They didn't know how to get him the help that he needed. And so what we did at Rebel News, that we are taking the credit for it, but we shouldn't be, because it is all the people who donated to him and donated to the Democracy Fund to help not just Chris, but people like him. We just became sort of the connecting piece so that you knew about what Chris was doing. But really, the full credit should go to everybody who donated to the Democracy Fund to fund Chris's fight against the government. And it's still ongoing. He's still at trial for standing up against the government, even though the regulations are gone, the pandemic is gone, if it were ever even here in the first place. But he's still fighting the government. And it's funny, because this is the same government that said, oh, we have to offer amnesty and pardons to anybody who is ever convicted of a marijuana offense. Okay, I'll hear that argument. But why aren't we extending that same sort of amnesty to the people who all they did was open their restaurant, serve some burgers, and nobody ever got sick.
But you know what, Sheila? You're right. The pandemic is gone. But let the likes of Chris Scott in Alberta and Adam Skelly in Toronto of Adamson's Barbecue, let them stand as a cautionary tale that the next time there's some new variant of the coronavirus, or maybe monkeypox will come back in vogue, or maybe in the years ahead, who knows, we'll have a climate crisis emergency shutdown of the economy. That's actually being proposed. I'm not making this up, folks. Let's have everybody open up. Not just ones and twos, but everybody. They can't throw every single business person and restaurateur in jail, Sheila Gunn-Reid. That's what we need to see. We have to take a stand against an oppressive state. We need that fantastic scene in Spartacus, remember? Who is Spartacus, says the Roman centurion. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. That's what we need. We can't allow the state to shut us down like they did. And Chris Scott and Adam Skelly and others showed the way. What we need is a mass acceptance of this, Sheila, that we're not going to take any kind of crap like that ever again. Let's make sure that 2020, 2021, and 2022 were anomalies, and that this will never be repeated again.
One more clip from Chris Scott, because it's not just the government. It was also the mainstream media. They were really the enforcers of the government. They were the ones saying, like signal boosting, all this stuff about, like how dangerous COVID was. There's not a single COVID case associated with the whistle stop or any of their protests, which were massive and ongoing. But every day, the rhetoric in the mainstream media reinforced what the government wanted to do to people. They really amplified the fear that drove the compliance, but also drove the attacks on people like Chris. In normal times, you would be like, okay, well, he wants to open, but I'm scared of COVID, so I'm just going to stay at home. That's how it should have been. But that's not what it was like. People like Chris were treated like villains for making an act of economic survival, not just for himself, but for also all of his employees too. We've got one more clip from Chris's incredible testimony before the NCI. He did get a little emotional, especially when he was talking about Staff Sergeant Bruce Holliday, who was transferred out of Bashaw to Stettler, and he took his life earlier in the year. But everybody knew Bruce was a good guy in a bad situation. But anyway, let's hear this next clip from Chris.
My friend Carrie over there and I, we of all the things that could have happened to a guy that owns the Whistle Stop Cafe, we got hit by a train. Can you believe that? We got hit by a train. And on social media, the outpouring of concern was amazing. Like, it was just, people were legitimately concerned for us and asking all the time how we're doing. But there were some people that said things like, I was so happy when I heard that. It's such a shame that you two freedomers didn't die. And that hit me like a freight train. That the idea that in this country where we're supposed to be free to disagree on certain issues and our leadership is supposed to foster good relations between us, right? They're not supposed to divide us with fear. That we've come to a point where one side actually wants the other side to die because they don't have the same opinions. And it's no different in my town.
Yeah, and you know what? The people espousing that opinion, Sheila, tend to be from the love Trump's hate community. Fancy that, eh?
Yeah, there was one more clip, but we don't have time to show it, where Chris talks about how much differently he was treated in the independent media versus the Trudeau colonized, subsidized media. And how, not just him, but how anybody who held, even, as he says, just a different opinion, how they were treated by the mainstream media. We don't necessarily have to show it, but you can find it on our social media pages, particularly on Twitter, because it seems to be the less censorious one. One last clip we should get to, because what happened to Chris happened in the times of Jason Kenney, where we were promised a certain thing by a certain so-called conservative who had all his life been a conservative who cared about religious freedom and economic freedom, and then all of a sudden when he was in charge, It was a little bit different, wasn't it? So but now things have changed. We've got a very freedom-minded, freedom-focused premier on our hands in Danielle Smith. And of course, because of that, she faces attacks from the mainstream media and the left, but I'm probably repeating myself there, all across the country and here at home. However, we are standing up to the federal government on the latest gun grab, which I love the idea that these guys to even think that they can peg down how much the buyback, which is like a completely inaccurate, like it's a misnomer, because you never owned these things to start with. So you can't buy them back from me. I didn't buy them from you. But they don't have a clue how many SKSs, for example, that's one model, are in the country, but they know how much it's going to cost to buy them all back from us. Sure, big guy. Sure. So anyways, we've got Alberta's chief firearms officer, because we threw out the Fed one and decided to hire our own, Terry Bryant, saying exactly what she's going to do to fight back against the feds.
From the outset, it has been crystal clear that the federal government's initiatives on firearms have had nothing to do with public safety. A thriving business sector is a vital part of the firearms community and has for decades provided thousands of well-paid jobs across the country that have enabled skilled workers to provide for their families while supporting activities they love, such as hunting, target shooting, and the collection and preservation of historical artifacts. Federal measures have created threat after misguided threat to the livelihoods of these dedicated, hard-working business people and their employees. In May 2020, the federal government froze millions of dollars worth of inventory in place, requiring businesses to continue to finance product that they were forbidden to sell. The freeze on handgun transfers and proposals to ban almost all modern and many traditionally styled hunting and sporting firearms have deprived them of their most saleable products at the time that ongoing supply chain issues have made it difficult to obtain the few things they are still allowed to sell. Federal attacks on this industry are forcing its members to sell their frozen inventory to the federal government. As it appears that the federal announcement this morning had no detailed document or financing behind it, we do not even know whether they will consider the financing and storage costs dealers have paid to keep stock that they cannot sell. These entrepreneurs established their businesses to safely provide the firearms community with the equipment it needs to continue the long, honorable tradition of firearms ownership in communities large and small all across this great country. They should not be forced to turn their stocks over to the federal government at massive expense to Canadian taxpayers. We call on the federal government to reverse its punitive measures against the firearms community and allow businesses to sell their inventory to carefully vetted Canadians for the sporting purposes they were made for, and not to the federal government for needless destruction.
Wow, what common sense, eh, Sheila?
I love her. And it's interesting to have somebody who is a CFO who actually knows something about firearms and the impact of firearms legislation or lack thereof on the crime rates. And the impact, like what they would call what the feds have done to the firearms retailers in Alberta. In the oil patch, we would call that stranded assets, where you have something that you cannot use thanks to legislation. And that's what's happening here. And it's devastating family businesses. I think it was Wolverine. Could someone will, if I'm wrong, I'm going to get an email. But I think it was Wolverine, and they made one model of an AR. And then the government banned the AR. And then so it just destroyed their entire business. Everything is just gone in the stroke of a pen.
Oh, Wolverine's a brand of firearms.
Yes. Well, it's
I thought you were talking about Logan, the X-Men. That I can talk chapter and verse on, but not the but you know I love the firearms community. And by the way, Sheila, I know someone very dear to me. She's a recent firearms owner. You know her too and love her.
I do.
And she mentioned something the other day, because I said, you know, if this thing ever gets going where the RCMP start coming door to door to firearms owner asking for their handguns and rifles, whatever's being banned, what are you going to say? And I think she's onto something. She's going to say, you know something, Sarge, went on a hunting trip last summer. Canoe capsized. My
Yeah.
firearms are at the bottom of Lake
Boating
Nipissing.
accident. Boating accident. Got them all, including my dad's.
Yeah,
guns.
so what I'm saying is good luck collecting. It ain't going to happen.
Not only that, like, now, Alberta's a little bit different. I don't know what the heck is going to happen in Ontario, but Alberta, Saskatchewan, a few other provinces, they said they're not going to direct their RCMP to get firearms from law-abiding people. They've got better things to do, real crimes to deal with, than kicking in the doors of their friends and neighbors to steal their guns. And, you know, if you've spoken to a cop recently, like, that's the last thing they want to do. Most of them are, I don't know about Ontario, but I know out here in, you know, rural and semi-rural suburban Alberta, they're firearms enthusiasts just like us. They want to go hunting, they go shooting too. They are firearms owners, and I don't know if they want to steal each other's guns either. So I just, you know, it's all this is going to do is further fracture the relationship between communities and their police that was already excessively damaged through COVID.
Oh, but Sheila, I think you know what's happening in Ontario. We just threw to a clip the Toronto Police Mounted Unit shutting down a drag queen protest. I guess because there was no barbecue restaurant operating illegally to shut down. So, and this is a city, folks, where every single crime, every one, is a double-digit increase, I believe. This is where honest, law-abiding citizens are getting murdered on the subway for doing nothing but minding their own business. And yet, the Mounted Unit, think how expensive that is shutting down restaurants, shutting down teenagers, standing up for decency and morals. Yeah, that's how we roll in Ontario, Sheila.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's
yikes.
right. Yikes.
Just yikes. And you have a conservative government there. Government there. And John Tory is supposed to be like the right-leaning mayor. Give me a break.
Thank you for the air quotes with the conservative government.
Hard air quotes.
Yeah.
We should get to the chats. We just have a couple to wrap up because we're 22 minutes past. So we've got, there was an opportunity for us to slam PSAC again, but maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow. Fraser McBurney gives us $5. For those of you who don't know, and I say it every week, Fraser is a Fight the Fines recidivist, but also a Fight the Fines winner. From Hamilton. He is out there protesting almost every single week, if not every single week, and he just loves the caps lock. I don't know if it's broken on his phone or what, but or maybe he's just excitable. He's just screaming. But anyways, Fraser writes, for $5, I know what I'll be doing on May 20th, 2023. I'll be watching Rebel News from Lisbon at the Bilderberg show. I'll be donating $100 for your cost. You want us to go to Bilderberg? I don't know if we can. The thing with Bilderberg is that you can't get close at all. Like it's not even like when you go to the UN climate change conference and some pesky journalist got the whole company kicked out by asking tough questions. You can sort of prowl around the outside events. It's very different at Bilderberger stuff. It's very different. So I don't know if we'll go, and if we do go, we're not going to tell the bad guys that we're going anyway.
Yeah.
Right? So just take this as the most vague possible answer for me. I can neither confirm or deny anything. Let's keep going. We can thank Chris Dacey from Dacey Media for filming the interaction with Nick Alexander and the cop. So I want to make sure that we properly credit people whose content we use, borrow, and make sure that, as I said when we said that we would link that young lady's music video, let's make sure that we properly credit Dacey Media for capturing that interaction between Nick and the police.
100%.
And we got one from Justin Trudeau. Very clever. Very, very clever.
Not blackface himself. And if so, is it actually his money, or did he dip into the taxpayer trough yet again?
Are you not paying attention to how I pronounce that? Turd. Trudeau. Justin Trudeau gives us $2 and says, today's show brought to you by Sheila Smokin' Gun Read. Okay, well, thanks, guys. You know what? I'll take whatever compliment I can get. I'm in my 40s, so you know what? If you want to pay to give me a compliment, I'm taking it any day of the week. So thank you very much.
What am I, Scotch Mist? I don't get any love? Come on.
You know what? You've got the couple of these like ladies who just they've got it bad for old David Menzies. There's a couple of them that regularly donate and force me to read their.
I got a regular harem out there.
Yeah, well, these ladies regularly donate and force me to uncomfortably read their very, very thirsty super chats. So it's nice to have one leveled in my direction. Thank you, David. I think we're done.
All right. Thank you so much, Sheila. Well, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. A special thank you to all of those who gave us a donation. We really greatly appreciate it, whatever the amount is. And, of course, thanks
or for whatever reason.
Yeah. And keep those compliments coming in for Sheila Gunreed. She really loves them. And thank you also to our super producers, Olivia and Efron. I will be back here tomorrow. I think it's with Tamara Ugolini, the Khaleesi of the greater Coburg area, tomorrow. So that's always a hoot. In the meantime, as always, folks, stay safe and stay sane.
This is Callum Smiles for Rebel News, and I am in central Paris covering the May Day protests because the mainstream media will not report on the truth here in France. Now, tensions have been rising for a short while now with President Macron's undemocratic state pension reforms. We got an